So, good morning, afternoon, or evening to you wherever you're calling in from, and welcome. My name is Betsy Peters, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Product Strategy at Riva International, the host of this virtual panel. We're really pleased to have a full house today. As we've been setting it up, it's been great to see some familiar faces from our favorite customers. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of the new faces and names as well. For those of you who are new to Riva, we specialize in customer data operations, which means we make sure that the data about interactions with customers is available in the workflows that your teams use the most, for example, Outlook and Salesforce. We synchronize customer and deal data between systems of action and systems of record. We unify interaction data and put it in the context of long-term relationships. And then we automate data governance to ensure that access and storage rules are followed as we distribute revenue and relationship intelligence to the teams and individuals with permission to access that data. We've been at it for more than 12 years now, and we've been partnered with Salesforce for 10 of those. But because we serve hundreds of companies in regulated industries around the globe who have security as a top concern, it's really difficult to get permission to share case studies. So that's why this year we partnered with Forrester to help us tell the story about Riva's impact. We've pulled this panel together to share what we've learned, which is summed up in our title: Customer Data is the Critical Layer in Your Revenue Technology Stack. And I'm thrilled to introduce our experts, Seth Mars, Coco Dong from Forrester, and Greg Wazowski from Salesforce. For the next 40 minutes or so, they'll spend time presenting 3 different perspectives on this theme. First, Seth will provide the revenue technology market perspective, helping us understand why smart companies have begun to consider data as a distinct layer in the enterprise tech stack, which data ops capabilities are necessary to realize the promises of digital transformation. Then, Greg will provide an ecosystem perspective on Salesforce, customer data, and financial services, digging into some of the reasons that digital transformation efforts in FINs have been slow to create value. And finally, Coco will provide the financial perspective using 4 of Riva's customers in a composite organization as a case study. From there, we're going to open that floor to you, our audience, for a Q&A session with our esteemed guests. So please feel free, like I said, to add your questions in the Q&A chat window at any time during the presentation. We'll queue those up at the end. Our goal is to keep you on the edge of your seats and fully engaged for the next hour or so. So let's get right to it. Our first guest is Seth Mars, and he's been a principal analyst at Forrester for the past 4 years. Before Forrester, Seth was deep in the trenches, responsible for customer acquisition, sales execution, and compensation for multiple private equity-backed companies, ranging in size from $200 million to $1 billion, including GE Life Sciences. So Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. Please take it away.
Thanks for having me. It's an exciting conversation. So I'll start off with all the cool stuff that I see. So I spend a lot of time working on the revenue technology side. So me talking with sales engagement providers, revenue operations intelligence, all the front end tools that everybody gets really excited about, and being able to use them in a way to be able to optimize their sellers. So we talk about it from the context of operations and enablement to be able to put those things together and leverage technology to increase the yield per rep. And there's all sorts of cool stuff out there, digital insights that you can utilize, contact cadences. These technologies are really valuable and can really take your sellers and your sales performance to the next level. And we looked at it from a few different perspectives. We break it down into what we call dynamic guided selling, which has a whole bunch of different ways that you can impact the seller, all backed by data. And when you look into it, you can see throughout the entire sales process, there are things that you can leverage these tools. You can use insights across the entire sales process to help you improve win rates, to be able to understand what's going on with your buyers when you're not talking to your buyers. So you can give that information to your sellers. You can use cadences to be able to support opportunity volumes. You can look at solutions to be able to figure out what's the best deal, what's the best customers I should be approaching. All sorts of really valuable stuff that allow you to have an edge. The other thing that we're seeing, especially in complex cases, is there's lots of interactions that happen between the buyer and seller that initiate a deal. And if you're really sharp about how you use these technologies, you can move that either to your advantage, or if you're behind the curve, you can fall behind. So what you see here is just a look at 100 deals, and this is more of a model to talk through the capabilities. So typical win rate that we see is around 23%. And if you look at it and said, okay, if I just could increase my performance 3% in each one of these deals, just win 3% more, then by the time I got to the end of this deal, I'd have 42 deals instead of 23. But on the flip side, if you fall behind and you're 3% worse, you can look back and say, okay, I can only win 13 deals. Because I mean, you're going to win deals even with the worst performance if you have with certain products. But what you're trying to do is optimize. And what this gives you when you look at the performance variance is it's very much in your control on how much of this share you're going to take. And these tools help you achieve that. So it's a really exciting time. There's lots of things that you could do. But the next thing that you want to take a look at is, let me give you one more example before I go into it. It's deal score. So if you aren't using these today, Salesforce has them. A lot of different companies have them. What you're able to do is take these interactions, look at things like what's the recency of the customer engagement, what's the progression like on the different deals, how's the engagement between the buying group and the sellers, what's the frequency of interactions that are happening, and then put that all together to be able to determine a deal score that helps you prioritize which deals you should support, which deals you should work and build into. And this is really great. The only challenge you have is there's something behind the scenes, and that's your data. And what we see in a lot of companies and a lot of industries that are trying to implement these very cool tools, they get sold on it, they think it's really valuable, and they buy it, and then they wonder, why isn't it working the way that I want it to work? Well, they look back and I have duplicates in the system. I have multiple contacts. I have multiple accounts. So it doesn't really reflect or look at things in a way that it can understand what is value. Then in order to get the value from these systems, you need your sellers to enter all those interactions and push them in a consistent way. And that's a lot of work, and sellers don't have a lot of time, so they don't do that work. So what ends up happening is all these tools on the front end end up not performing at the level you want them to perform because you don't have the data on the back end to really back them up. And the way this looks, just in an example, is if you just take a scenario of a 10-step interaction, you could see here, all these interactions happen. It's probably there's no positive, there's equal positives, equal negatives. But if you only could see a few of those deals, depending on which interactions you could see, as a company, you may look at that and say, oh, we've got a great shot of winning this deal. This is one we should prioritize. Or if you get the other interactions, you may say, whoa, this deal's in trouble. We need to put all resources on it. So the truth of it is, if you really want to get value and optimize and utilize all these really cool tools, you got AI, you have generative AI, you have all these things that are happening, at the back end of that is data. And you really need to be able to understand and put your data in the right place, the right structure to be able to make the most of it. So what I want to cover now is just to talk through what that looks like at a high level. And it really starts with the collection, and I'll go through a 4-step process. So you've got the data side in the collection effort. This is not trivial. It's actually very much at the foundation of how you determine and provide good insights. You need to have a way to cleanse. You need to have a way to put it all together. You need to have a way to put it in a place where it can be reviewed. And then all of that needs to be compliant in order to be able to execute it. So when you pull all that data together, that just gives you the ability to move on to the next step. So now you want to draw insights from it. So you bring that data together and you try to understand, what does it mean? What am I trying to look for? How do I analyze it? And there's lots of great tools to do that, but you have to have it structured in a way and have a plan for what you're trying to do and how you're going to approach it to be able to execute and get the most from that data. And finally, you've built it all together. You have insights. Now you're going to orchestrate off of it. what do I want to do? So a lot of times what I see, and this is changing pretty significantly with new insights, is here's a report. I just gave you a dashboard. It's a nice shiny dashboard. Go work on it, and that should be enough to be able to help you. The reality is the true value from data and insights comes from what you do with it, not your ability to see it. So you need to take action. What are you going to do? How are you going to coordinate it? How do you optimize it? How do you go back and look at it, see what worked and what didn't? So then finally, once you get into that position, now you can finally deliver on a lot of the things that we talked about with some of these front end tools that are all the rage today, that are delivering all sorts of value today. Is you're driving the interactions, and now you're driving those interactions with highly valuable information that's accurate and that's useful.
Excellent, Seth. Thank you so much. That is like really terrific context. Breaking that down in the various data operations requirements associated with each functional layer of that revenue technology stack is a powerful contribution to the conversation. And I'll be really glad to use that schematic to dimensionalize the critical and exacting work that gets done behind the scenes. There's been some good questions building up in the chat about that, and we'll get to those with Seth at the end. So for now, just keep them coming. And first, we'll turn over the mic to Greg Wazowski, who's worked at Salesforce for the last 9 years. In his current role, he leads the global ISV financial services strategy and has been a really valuable thought partner to Riva. Greg's responsible for growing the fintech, banking as a service, and embedded finance practice. And he focuses on developing businesses and technology strategies to help partners reach product market fit faster. With over 15 years of international experience at the intersection of business and technology innovation, including consulting, strategic partnerships, go-to-market strategy, pre-sales, business and product design, he's been active in the ring, helping financial services organizations with their digital transformation goals. So, Greg, help us understand how some of what Seth has been talking about fits into what you see every day on the front lines from your perch at Salesforce.
Thanks a lot, Betsy. I managed to find the unmute button, which is brilliant. So thanks for the introduction, and Seth, thanks a lot for your part as well. I find it extremely insightful. So just to summarize, Seth really talked about the efficiency and the readiness, the interaction fidelity, deal scoring, and the revenue tech model with the pillars across data analytics, orchestration, delivery. And I'll try to explain how it is relevant in the context of Salesforce and Riva. For those of you that might not know Salesforce, Salesforce is a customer relationship management platform that helps organizations like yours connect better with your customers to drive revenue growth, improve customer engagement, and streamline business operations through data-driven insights and automation. So we have customers across all the industries, but today I'll be focusing specifically on financial services, which is our biggest vertical and the vertical that I know best. That's the vertical that I spend most of my time at Salesforce in. So to start with, and this is a conversation I had with Betsy a couple of weeks ago, we try to think about how financial services really compares to other industries. And the conclusion is that this comes from our own research, is that financial services as an industry has been slower to adopt new technologies compared to other industries such as technology, communications, and media or entertainment. However, the rise of fintechs has really disrupted the financial services industry and forced the traditional institution as well to rethink their approach to technology and customer experience. So if you're thinking about fintechs, right? So fintechs are more often more innovative than traditional financial institutions, as they are unencumbered by the legacy technology systems. They can either build their platforms from scratch or partner with the market leaders in this space. So this has really allowed fintechs to provide a more streamlined and user-friendly experience for customers, particularly in the areas of mobile banking or payments. So on the other hand, when we think about the traditional financial services institutions, including credit unions, regional and community banks, they have been slightly slower to innovate due to a number of factors. However, I think they are all recognizing that the need to adapt and invest in technology to improve the customer experience and compete with some of those fintechs, compete or partner actually. And customer data operation solutions such as Riva offer a way for traditional financial institutions to modernize the technology and improve the customer experience without having to rip and replace everything. And by leveraging Salesforce as a single source of truth for customer data, financial institutions can really provide a more seamless, a personalized experience for customers across multiple channels, including mobile, online, and in person. So when it comes to trends, and I went a slide too far, sorry. When we're thinking about the trends in financial services, I'll try to define what financial services actually means for us. So I'm referring to the industries of wealth management, asset management, banking, both retail and commercial, lending and insurance. So what we've been seeing, when it comes to the trends is the shift related to workforce, of course, with more people working either remotely on flexible arrangements, where they work from the office and from home. More importantly, we've seen a growing need to onboard new customers virtually and develop virtual relationships with these customers. As a matter of fact, this is actually an interesting stat related to the evolving customer expectations. 62% of financial services customers said that the online digital capabilities are paramount when selecting a financial services company they want to work with. So it is critical to conduct business operations virtually across all the channels in a connected and compliant manner with ease and access of users for everyone. And finally, when it comes to compliance and regulations, I don't want to be scaring anyone with numbers, but the $10 billion in fines back in 2019, that's unfortunately something that continues. Companies will need to enable and supercharge employee productivity for quick response and resolutions when it comes to guided workflows, automated tasks, and action plans that accelerate through the change, focus on maintaining compliance, providing the right service and advice from anywhere. So when we're actually thinking about the financial services landscape, I would, what I wanted to illustrate here is really decades of complexity that's slowing down digital transformation journey and preventing some of those institutions delivering a unified customer experience. So we've got a fractured views of a customer, a lot of duplicative, discrete functions, business silos, complex integrations, a lot of old core systems that are all contributing to these silos. So these challenges really create a complex web of interdependencies and a fragmented data that is impeding agility and preventing some of those institutions in the financial services sector from innovating at the speed they would like and at the speed that the customers are actually demanding. And I see that transforming this landscape requires really a fundamental shift when it comes to both mindset and strategies. So by breaking down the silos, streamlining processes, investing in modern customer data operation solutions, financial institutions can really create this single source of truth for customer data and unlock new opportunities for growth and innovation. So when I'm talking about growth and innovation in financial services space, building trust with customers goes beyond just offering great products and services. And we put the customer at the center because this is really key. So what is really needed is the deep understanding of the customers and their financial situations, goals, and relationships. Customers want to be more than just a transaction. They want to be understood and supported in achieving their financial objectives. And this is especially true for businesses where understanding the financial situation and relationships is really crucial to becoming a trusted partner. So building trust really requires a customer-centric view, which can be challenging in the industry with a very complex relationship and fragmented systems. But however, by adopting this, I mentioned the 360 of the customer, by adopting this holistic 360 view, you can not only develop trusted relationships, but you can also increase the cross-selling opportunities and grow revenues. When it comes to financial services, we have a strong presence across the spectrum from consumer to institutional. So talking about cards and payments, retail premier banking, P&C insurance, life insurance and annuities, wealth management, mortgage lending, business commercial banking, asset management, corporate banking, treasury services, investment banking, global markets. Our presence in the industry is really bolstered by the ISV program and Salesforce App Exchange, which offers a thriving ecosystem of technology solutions. We have over 7,000 of them. As a matter of fact, 91% of our customers use at least one App Exchange solution. And Riva is actually one of the hundreds industry-specific solutions in the ecosystem. And together we serve a large percentage of customers in the financial services industry. So what does it mean for us? By partnering with Riva, Salesforce customers can really address complex customer data operation challenges and achieve a single source of truth that is necessary to prove and provide this excellent customer experience and grow the revenues. I'll give you one more example before I pass it to Coco. Specifically in the context of financial services, we have a product called Financial Services Cloud, which has a financial services specific data model and has been built specifically for organizations across those key verticals. So when we launched FSC for corporate and investment banking, we wanted to ensure that our customers have access to a wide range of purpose-driven integrations that can help them meet the specific business needs. And this is once again, really where App Exchange comes in, because the partners that we have, they offer solutions that fall in context of CIB into these three categories. So enriching data, business applications, and technology. So Riva in this context offers a powerful integration between Salesforce and the email systems like the exchanges, Office 365, Gmail, and so on and so forth, which helps our customers manage, deepen, and grow client relationship with the third-party data that is brought into the single platform. So by including Riva in our launch, we're adding value to our customers in a CIB space by providing them with a powerful integration tool that can help them streamline the workflows and improve the overall client relationships. So some of the benefits that we've seen from joint customers includes time saving, elimination of double bookings, productivity lift, and this is the part that Coco will actually dive into and tell you more about. Thanks a lot.
Greg, thank you very much. That decades of complexity slide really, really resonates with our team at Riva. We hear the effects of that reality every day on the phones with customers. And we're just so grateful to you and Salesforce for the work you do to try and break down those silos to help deliver on the promise that all of these customers are demanding from the banks. So again, some good questions about case studies and fins building up in the Q&A box, but would love to hear more. So please use that, and we'll get to them right after our final panelist, Coco Dong. So Coco's a consultant for the total economic impact practice at Forrester. In this role, she works with Forrester's technology clients to measure and articulate the business value and financial impact of technology investments. Coco's worked across a variety of industries and technology domains, including banking, software as a service, and platform as a service, as well as MarTech. Coco, we've worked closely together over the past 6 months to understand and translate the value of customer data operations. Tell us more about how you justify an investment in something that on the surface can seem really simple, but in reality, as we've heard from Seth and Greg, just drives breakthrough results.
Yes, great. Thank you, Betsy. Hi, everyone. I'm Coco. I'm glad to be here. I'm a consultant with Forrester TEI team. And first of all, I want to thank Seth and Greg to set the foundation of this conversation. And Seth bring us like the insight on the power of data and technology on revenue generation. And Greg provided the financial industry specific insights from an operational perspective. Great, thank you so much. And this it's a good time for me to talk through the total economic impact case study we did together with Riva and Riva's customers to show the financial impact of Riva product. So total economic impact, as known as TEI study, has been used for over 20 years by technology customers and technology organizations. It consists of 4 components to evaluate and justify the technology investment: benefits, costs, flexibility, and risk. So in this specific Riva project, we took a multi-step approach to evaluate the impact of Riva, starting from the due diligence. We interview Riva internal stakeholders, review Riva materials to know better about Riva product. Then we entered the customer interview phase to collect data points, user cases from current Riva users. With all the data we collected, a composite organization, basically a fake company, is formed to represent a Riva user and develop the financial model to run the quantitative analysis. So with all those materials, we write the case study and publish it. So here, let me show you some of the highlighted insights from this TI study. First of all, let's look at a customer testimony we collected during the customer interview. The Vice President of Business Intelligence and CRM Services with one of the financial services company said Riva incents people to get their clients' interaction into CRM so we can better cover the account. That way, we know what is happening with the account across all of our regions, products, and services. And we can take advantage of cross-marketing and cross-selling opportunities. So I think it provides an overview of the benefits Riva delivers to the clients. So with deployment of Riva, users are more likely to have a comprehensive customer interaction data in the CRM, which could potentially increase the upsell and cross-sell opportunities. So with the comprehensive assessment, we determine the 3-year impact of using Riva as follows. The return on investment of Riva is 352%, which means each dollar you spend with Riva, the net return is $3.52. The total present value of benefit over 3 years is $7.5 million US dollars. And the net present value is over 5.84 million. Now, I want to briefly walk you through the journey of this TI project and give you a nutshell on how we get those numbers. So, in the project, we interviewed 4 customers. We interviewed 4 Riva customers. They are IT managers in different organizations. 3 of them are from financial services industry and 1 from pharmaceutical industry. Those organizations are headquartered in North America or Europe, but with global operations. The number of Riva users ranged from 500 plus to 60,000 plus. It gives us a pretty good snapshot about Riva development. So before Riva investment, most of the organizations have no similar tools to synchronize the information or the data, or they use an in-house built tool to manage the information. The organizations are facing pain points like incompleted customer communication or duplicate information in the CRM system, and incentivize the user to use CRM system and no continuous support to develop the in-house tool to fulfill more complicated user cases as their business develops. So the organizations urgently need a solution to automatically capture the customer interaction data and store in the CRM system, free up the frontline users from manual admin works, and relocate their time to customer-facing activities, and be able to scale and enterprise ready for the organizations is one of the factors when organization evaluating the technology. So some of the interviewed organizations have multiple CRM systems, so they need the tool to be able to integrate the different CRMs. And last but not least, for the regulated industry, filter and store information to keep the organization compliant is an important factor when they choose a solution. One quote from the interviewee stands out here. The pain point for many of the senior bankers was that they didn't want to learn another tool. The organization needs a tool to be automate the process. And Riva is a choice here. So to better illustrate the findings, we want to introduce our composite organization first. So I hope this composite organization is resonated with you. You may thought it's familiar. So it's an organization in the banking industry based in the US with global operations. And the annual revenue is $2.5 billion and the profit margin is 13.9%. There are 750 advisors. Each advisor manages around 100 clients or accounts. So in each account, there are 10 contacts. The composite organization realizes 3 categories of benefits. Time saving on calendar email synchronization. Time saving on elimination of double booking error. And profit increase due to productivity lift. So let's take a closer look at each of those benefits. First, a time saving on calendar email synchronization. Each year, based on the number of contacts and the customer interactions made by the 750 advisors, 37,500 hours are saved each year due to Riva synchronization function. For the composite organization, 15 supporting staff could be saved. That's equivalent to $3.5 million savings over 3 years. And second, the elimination of double booking error. Riva captures the relevant calendar information in the CRM system and Outlook and keeps the two platforms up to date in the real time. And also it can create meeting scheduling links which can be shared directly to the client. So 15,600 double booking meetings are avoided per year, translated to a 3,900 hours saving on double booked meeting elimination if we think about the time we spend to correct those meetings, correct those errors. So not mentioning the customer experience or employee experience improvements here. So over 3 years, Riva could save $400,000 for the composite organization. Who could think like this double book errors can cost the organization this much money in the previous environment? So third, the profit increase due to productivity lift. So Riva's approach to capture and unify customer and deal data across platform delivers a more complete customer 360 to the frontline users. So this comprehensive approach to data capture increased sales efficiency at the composite organization by 5% faster to close each deal. So each advisor can have 7 more deals closed each year with 30.9% profit margin. The composite organization is realizing $3.4 million more profits in 3 years. So besides of those quantified benefits, we also identified the following unquantified benefits as well. So first, the specialized configuration managed materials non-public information, which can help the regulated organizations to identify, route, and store sensitive and non-public information to prevent organizations from violating governance or regulation. So this point resonated with what Greg mentioned before, especially in the financial industry. This is pretty important and critical. Second, enterprise cloud-based data enables shared responsibility. So clients save time on maintenance and upgrades compared to the on-premise infrastructure, and Riva team share the responsibility for the security here. Third, Riva Cloud's admin center provides visibility and the flexibility to internal IT support team. So the internal IT team could save time on troubleshooting, security governance options, etc. And fourth, Riva team provides continuous and proactive support to clients. So interviewees express their gratitude to Riva's team members for their proactive support during the whole journey. So other than benefits, TI study also analyzed the flexibility factors as part of the TI model. So Forrester takes into consideration a solution's flexibility factors, which defined as the ability to do something cheaper, better, faster in the future because of this particular technology investment. So in this Riva case, we found that Riva could quickly adapt to organizational change. In infrastructure, Riva has an intelligence configuration layer, so the product doesn't need to adjust the code to adapt to the changing infrastructure. And the Riva provides the flexibility to expand the tool into different environments. So what's more, Riva promotes transparency across the account and contact coverage. The product manager with another financial organization highly think this transparency function is critical to these organizations. So next, let's discuss some of the costs. So based on the interviews with current customer as applied to the composite organizations, there are two parts of the cost. First, subscription cost, which is 1.54 million in 3 years after risk adjustment. So Riva bills based on the number of users per month. And the second cost category is implementation and professional service fee. For the composite organization, Riva could charge professional service fee for, here's a quote. And Riva charges $30K US for professional service fee. And internally, organization needs a team of 3 members to facilitate the implementation over the course of 4 months. So in summary, the ROI of Riva deployment over 3 years is 352%, and the net present value is 5.84 million. That's a quickly rundown about the key findings of this PI study. Please feel free to bring up any questions or comments you have. Thanks. Betsy, you're on mute.
Of course I am. The perils of dogs at home. At any rate, thank you, Coco. It was a pleasure working with you and the Forrester team. I appreciate the way you helped us understand the very specific drivers of value and the outsized impact that Riva makes for our customers. So we are going to shift now into Q&A. And there are a number that came in before as people registered, but we do have one live one. So I think we'll kick to that first, and that went to Seth.
Yeah, so the question that was asked were what obstacles slow down progress for customers who are attempting to create the model that you described? And the big one for me isn't necessarily accuracy of data or getting everything perfect. It is consistency. So one of the problems as a practitioner that I ran into is when I asked when I wanted to understand activity capture and see, are my sellers who are active more successful than the ones that aren't, what I found was the exact opposite. So the sellers who entered nothing were the best sellers, and the sellers who entered everything were the sellers that were struggling the most. And the conclusion after analyzing that was, well, that was because if I'm making my number, kind of do whatever I want, and that I'm doing what I need to do. If I'm not making my number, I'm trying to show you that I'm doing everything I can to make it. So in order to get the consistency needed, you need everyone entering activities at the same level. So when email comes in, it needs to be entered with the same consistency for every seller. Because if you do that, at the very least, you can say, when I'm looking at data, I'm looking at a top seller versus a bottom seller, or my team on whole on par. And if you do that, that will put you ahead of a large majority of organizations who really struggle to be able to get that data entered and entered consistently.
There's a related question, and maybe Greg, you can take this one. Do you need a plan for bad data in the system, right? So are there ways to accept that it isn't perfect? How do you take that into consideration for analysis and use in forecasting? And then just the realization that everybody has bad data. How do you accept that and overcome it?
I think the first step is, of course, to recognize the fact that there is bad data, right? So in any business, data quality is critical, and having inaccuracies or incomplete data can lead to poor decision making, incorrect forecasting, financial losses even, right? So I think starting with the acknowledgement that the data is not perfect is a good starting point for sure. If we think about the fact that bad data will inevitably enter the system, that's the starting point to design the strategy. Now, it really depends where the data sits. I talk quite a lot about the single source of truth, the 360 view of the customer. In the context of Salesforce, we have a number of tools. I'm getting a little bit technical here when it comes to data validation rules, duplicate management, or even things like the new one of the newest products we have announced when it comes to data cloud, which integrates vast amounts of data from multiple sources and uses machine learning and analytics to provide deep insights into customers' behaviors and preferences. But we also have a number of partners that really help our customers in this space, from data deduping and cleaning the data to augmenting the data. So there are many different strategies that you can actually apply. It was quite a long answer, but acknowledging that there is a problem with the data, I think, is the right step. But you need a strategy, you need a plan. You can't just accept, okay, there is bad data, let's just leave with that.
Yeah, and maybe to tie the two questions we just had together, from an organizational perspective, are the experienced designers starting to get involved in revenue operations? So are there product designers that are coming in and really looking at how the sales folks are interacting with workflows when it comes to the data and how the data is getting put in? Do you hear that from customers?
I see that a lot, but not sure what the question was for me. But traditionally, we've seen data really sitting with the IT departments, and I'm not claiming that data doesn't sit with the IT departments, but data is a broader cross-department responsibility. And we've actually seen data specific teams being created, focusing on the overall data strategy. But you might remember the slide where I had the customer in the center, the same way we could put the employee in the center in any persona. And starting actually there is really important. And this is why the innovation team are getting involved more and more to look at the specific persona, look at the specific jobs to be done, pains and gains, and taking that as a starting point to designing the overall data strategy.
What I see on the seller side is, and with a lot of the front end tools, is trying to make it easy for them to actually enter it. So how do I make sure an email can come in and go into Salesforce, remove the friction and just let the seller put it where it should go naturally? My personal opinion is I don't think the seller should be involved at all. I think they should be focused completely on selling, and there should be internal tools that allocate and aggregate insights into the places they need to go, put all the emails where they need to go, the phone calls where they need to go, all of that information, and let the seller sell and let them get the benefit of the insights that come back from having that data aggregated. That's going to take a little bit of time to push through. But the thing I see most is let's just make it easy. If I make it easy for them to do it, my chances of I'll get significantly more data than if I make it harder. And you would think that's obvious, but in a lot of cases, it is very difficult for a seller to enter an activity into their system.
And again, that's what Riva does. And that's what as I made the transition to Greg, I think it seems so simple on the surface what we do, but it is really complex and it really makes a huge difference. And another question just came in from the audience saying, Coco, you mentioned some of the Riva clients saying that relationship advisors don't want to learn another tool. And I think this is resonant of what Seth was just saying. This is a question for the whole panel. How much do you hear that in other banking or insurance organizations that you connect with?
Constantly. Sellers want things that are going to make their life easier. They'll pick up any tool if it makes their life easier. But I think that like the heart of that story is, oh gosh, here's another initiative, another tool, another thing that I'm going to have to figure out. Because on the flip side of things, like think about if you have something that you don't use very much, and then you have to go use it. You almost have to relearn it all over again. So sellers want a suite of tools that they're using every day that fit with the way they work and that they can use at an expert level. Putting too many tools in front of them makes them non-experts in a bunch of different tools and slows them down. So they become reticent to it. And this is what I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can chime in. Yeah. From the interviews and along the project, so we constantly hear from the especially financial industry as well as the pharmaceutical industry company, like the new tool here, like they talk a lot is about the CRM, Salesforce or other CRM tools. So especially for the senior bankers, they want to maximize their time to do customer facing activities to generate revenues. And normally if there's a new tool introduced, the organization has to put several admin stuff to help those senior bankers to do their like system input, data capture to make sure their accounts, like the client account, has the sufficient information for them. And for the organization, it's kind of another layer of expense. That's why they think this synchronization function is crucial, because first, it standardizes the whole process. And second, it's like it can replace the main tasks. Like they need to hire extra like junior staff to support the bankers. But interestingly, some of the senior bankers, what they're gonna do is just they pick up phone call, meet the client, and then dump all the information to the supporting staff, put that in the system. So that's how the front office works traditionally, and which is inefficient and also cause a lot of errors because of all the human issues there, and didn't ensure like the comprehensive data capture in the CRM system, which devalue the deployment of CRM in the first place.
And to add to that, actually, from the product perspective, whenever you're building new products, there are three main tests: the test for desirability, viability, and feasibility. And if you fail the first test, it's not desirable. It's not something that customers want to use. What's the point? As Seth said, he mentioned the concept of easy. And I think when I'm actually looking at Riva, it's like, why is Riva working so well with Salesforce? Well, it works out of the box. It's a managed package you build, you distribute it through AppExchange. It simply works. And it combines the tools that people in financial services know very well with the CRM. And it makes their life easy. And again, coming back to the pains and gains concept, if it alleviates specific pains, if it adds gains, yes, people will use it, but it also has to be easy.
Yeah, and I think the point about viability, if you have to train your salespeople to use another tool versus have an automation in the background that's just connecting these two platforms, that's a no-brainer to make a decision as a CFO, as an architect, that you'd actually want to start with data as the layer that's the most important before you start making the decisions about workflows.
Yeah, one of the things that happens when you don't do that is your sellers lose faith in their tools. because all of a sudden the tool that was supposed to provide the insight and supposed to help them is giving them a whole bunch of goofy stuff that they don't even know what it means, and they end up ignoring a whole bunch of things. So if you don't get the data side right, then you're not going to get the insight right, and the sellers aren't going to value it.
Yeah. Let me shift gears for a second, because we've got some questions around compliance. So as regulations around customer data increase, particularly in financial services, how are the organizations that you are working with responding?
Greg, do you want to take that one on the financial services?
I can start with that. So compliance, actually looking at Salesforce in financial services, interestingly enough, most of our users were front office. We can see more and more mid and back office users leveraging Salesforce as a platform to manage very complex, at times very complex compliance-related processes. And the one thing is the awareness and the investments across the board when it comes to all sorts of small and big financial services institutions really implementing stricter data access controls, having proper data strategy, conducting regular data privacy and security audits, investing in the overall data quality management tools and process to ensure the accuracy and consistency of customer data. So it's definitely something that we come across very often. It's a topic that we discuss with our customers on a regular basis.
I mean, the perspective I come at this with is not necessarily financial services, but what I'm seeing and I'm spending a lot of time on are things like conversation intelligence or revenue operations and intelligence. And that's auto capture of emails, auto capture of phone calls, transcripts, all sorts. You can go from capturing everything that is said in a conversation in an email and putting that all in one place. And there's significant value in that, but there's also significant concern. And there's debates around how that is managed. So what I've seen most companies doing today is giving customers that choice. I can go from, I'm going to give you the transaction so you can at least know what transactions are coming in, all the way to I'm going to push all of the information in so you can see it and aggregate it. What I think will happen over time is the real value of that data isn't necessarily in giving it to the seller. It's more in being able to aggregate it and analyze it to derive insight. So you'll eventually be able to pull that in and analyze it and give the insight to the seller without having to expose all of the raw data. Yeah,
that makes sense. Related, and probably a question for Seth and Greg, we've got another question that says, are most FinServ organizations creating data lakes and then moving data into Salesforce? Or are they getting data into Salesforce and then augmenting Salesforce with data from other sources? What are the positives and negatives that you guys have seen in that regard?
I think we would need the whole webinar on this topic.
Right.
The short answer is it really depends. We've got a lot of solutions that augment the data that comes into Salesforce. A perfect example would be Dun & Bradstreet, the way they actually have integrated Optimizer with Salesforce to not only cleanse but augment the data in Salesforce. From the data lake strategy, again, we've seen a lot of interest and investment in this space. And again, coming back to the concept of data cloud, which is our response actually to the growing needs, really in as it relates to vast amounts of data. That's really the answer. We've seen the need to integrate vast amounts of data, whether this is IoT type of data, transactional data, you name it. And there's data from multiple sources. There is not only displayed, but first of all, that uses machine learning analytics to provide deep insights into the overall customer behavior preferences that can be used to personalize customer interactions and increase the overall engagement. There's definitely a need and interest from customers. We've seen some very interesting initial use cases related to data cloud, but also other customers actually leveraging external data lakes in the context of Salesforce. So not a straightforward answer. If anyone is interested in exploring it further, happy to take it offline.
Yeah, and I'll, like from when you say Salesforce, that's a very big set of tools. So I would assume that you're talking Salesforce CRM. If you're dealing with unstructured data, you're going to need a data lake to be able to analyze and understand that data. And if CRM is your execution engine, you're going to need to take those insights and push them through your execution engine to be able to help your sellers take advantage of them. So it really depends on how you want to structure it. Also, Salesforce has tools like that could potentially do those things as well. So depends on what. I'm assuming it's CRM. And for me, like, especially if you have ambitions to handle more than structured data, you're going to need something like that to be able to do that.
Yeah, great answer. All right, the last one is the one that's on everybody's minds, given everything going on in the zeitgeist. So we know that AI is only as good as the training data it's been given. How should our teams be thinking about changing business requirements to accommodate for ChatGPT and other large language models when it comes to their application in revenue technology? And we have 4 minutes left.
Oh, okay, so I'll take a stab at this one, and I'm going to try to keep it in the context of what we've talked about in this webinar, and just talk through a few things. It's very clear generative AI is going to change everything in terms of what you can do with these models. And these are not large language models like what you'd see today that a lot of companies have been doing. These are large language models that are beyond anything that we've seen used. But the key things that I would say, like the 2 points in thinking about that question, that I see when dealing with any of AI tools, when you're using these tools, you need to build in the user working with the tool rather than the user getting a result from the tool. I can't emphasize that enough, because what I see in a lot of cases is underutilization of things like conversation intelligence of AI, because they're like, oh, it isn't doing what I want it to do. Like, well, these tools don't work in a way where they're binary. They work with you. So the more you work with the tool, the better the tool becomes. And that's going to be a new muscle that a lot of people are going to have to, that are going to have to get used to doing. And if you don't do that, you'll never get the most from your AI tools. The other thing is, and it's the training side of it is very intensive. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to be able to train. But if you build your model and utilize structured data and not just blobs of information that you're trying to figure out, structured data equals speed when it comes to training those models. Because if you can tell the model what that data means, where it's at, and what to do with it, then it can be processed faster rather than looking at all of it together. So you got to consider that as you're building those models out, is how to utilize. A lot of times the structure, you're using a whole bunch of unstructured data, and that's incredibly intensive. And you're going to see the structured stuff really start helping to speed things up.
I'll add just one thing in the context of large language models, and that's a very short comment. 2 things I would emphasize is data quality and data diversity. I think as we've seen very interesting initial applications of large language models, and we at Salesforce are starting that as well with Einstein GPT. But those are 2 elements I would definitely focus on if you're thinking about building your own large language model strategy.
Thank you, Greg. All right, I'm getting the hook from my team. So our time is just about up. Before we all go, Riva was very pleased to host you all today. And I'd personally like to thank you all for your time, attention, and the great energy that you brought here today, especially our panelists, Seth, Greg, and Coco. We'll follow up later this week with a link to the recording in case there's someone on your team that missed the call today. And as you tackle your tough data operations issues, we hope you'll draw on some of the things we've discussed today and consider the meaningful economic impact that Riva creates for our clients. So thank you all, and have a terrific Tuesday.